Hey guys, I'm back with another Persona 4 Revival video. I'm making this video to share my thoughts on why I'm looking forward to Persona 4 Revival and I'm just generally optimistic about the Persona series going forward. And while people are saying that Persona 4 Revival will continue the trend of making the remake an easier version of its source material, I don't know if this is the case. At least, maybe not to the degree that people might think. Say what you want about Atlus, but they seem very receptive to how people review and discuss their games, with that either being a good thing or bad. With the original Persona 3, you only control the main protagonist, leaving the other party members to be controlled via the tactics menu. They then addressed this issue with Persona 4 by giving you the option for direct commands. They also saw how much people liked the UI for Persona 5, so they decided to do a similar one for Persona 3 Reload and obviously Persona 4 Revival, while also making them unique from each other. Even comparing Persona 5 to Persona 5 Royal, there are a decent amount of differences. One such being Goro Akechi's character being more fleshed out, and his social link going from story progression based to one where you had to voluntarily choose to do it in order to progress it, allowing you to see more of Akechi's character than the original game. This most likely stems from the fact that the team at Atlus involved with making the Persona games saw that fans enjoyed Akechi and decided to make him more involved in Royal. I guess the only thing I could say was a fumble was not including Kotone in Persona 3 Reload as DLC. Yeah, it would have been some extra work, but there are definitely people that would have bought it just to play as her, even if there wasn't an added answer appendage for her. But even then, it's not like Atlus pretends she doesn't exist. She showed up in Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth, and even more recently, she's going to be included in Persona 5X in a future update. So going back to Persona 3, many people wanted a remake to bring it up to the current format of Persona 5, which they did with Reload. Albeit with some tweaks such as Theurgy, to add something different to the combat system. And now Persona 4 Revival adds Prime Time as a mechanic, which seems to act as a replacement for Theurgy, allowing the player to essentially have 4 free moves when they fill up the meter. But if Atlus is as receptive as I think they are, it's possible that the meter takes longer to fill, given that it could be shared by up to a team of 4, or it may reset between each battle, unlike the distinct Theurgies in Persona 3 Reload, so maybe it isn't too OP, or so I imagine. And maybe some other things to address the criticisms people had with Reload's combat system. Or other additions such as being able to knock enemies into each other with certain attacks, or guard/counter an attack before entering turn-based combat. It definitely seems like Persona 4 Revival is more different to Persona 3 Reload than the original Persona 4 was to the original Persona 3. The game releases at the start of next year, so there is some time to tweak the mechanics if there are problems. While it's not a definite thing, it's certainly possible. Am I saying people still shouldn't be cautious? Not at all. But from what I've seen, it does seem like Atlus is trying, at least to an extent, to do right by fans, even if they don't get it right the first time. I can only imagine that with these Persona 3 and 4 remakes that they're using them in a sense to guide how Persona 1 and 2 remakes play, especially since Persona 1 and both 2s are revered by the fans who played those games, and also play quite differently than the rest of the series, starting with P3, as well as Persona 2 tying at number 1 with Persona 3 for a desired remake, with the main complaint for the original games being the combat and how they should be redone to fit the current standard. But here's the way I see it. Why should they rush to make a remake of 1 and 2 and then the combat doesn't meet the fans' expectations? What if they did rush out a remake for 1 or 2 before 4 and people criticize it like Persona 3 Reloads? Then we'd get people saying how the remakes of 1, and especially 2, were rushed and wasted, and there'd still be complaints about the battle system. So it seems like a losing scenario either way. I'd rather wait some time for them to make the combat of possible Persona 1 and 2 remakes to be as good as they can be, rather than be rushed out for the sake of it. Because here's the thing, after Katsura Hoshino, the director of the original Persona 3, 4, and 5 left after working on Persona 5, he founded the Atlus subsidiary, Studio Zero, and went there with a bunch of the team that had also worked on those aforementioned games, and they made Metaphor ReFantasio. So P Studio, which is the development division that currently handles the Persona series, understandably had to go through restructuring after that departure. meaning there's probably a huge shift in perspective with new people taking over the series and trying to work off the precedent set by Hoshino and former members of that team, which I don't think is receiving as much consideration as it probably should. Or maybe it's a moot point, who knows. So again, why wouldn't Atlus, and by extension the new P Studio team, test the waters by remaking P3 to modernize the gameplay more from the original game to play like P5? Or do a remake of the fan favorite Persona 4 that may address some feedback/complaints people had with 3 reloads combat. So it also means if that dev team is now working on the Persona series, why wouldn't they remake those games to get a better grasp at handling the series and using the feedback to inform their approach going forward? Their initial ideas of what makes the series special are probably different than that of the fans, and they may be working on readjusting that mindset in a way that could work for both parties, especially when it means that the current team will be handling 6 and possible remakes of 1 and 2. Sure, the current P Studio team worked on Royal, but I think that's a different thing altogether. Since the skeleton to Persona 5 was already there, they just added to it. Whereas with Persona 3 Reload, it was remaking Persona 3 from the ground up. Sure, the story is the same, but many things like the combat and overall atmosphere are different than that of the original Persona 3 experience. I don't think anyone could argue that, but I guess we'll have to just see how it all plays out. Persona 4 Revival is still a fairly long way off from releasing, so we won't actually know until the game actually drops for everyone. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you were able to get something out of it. Who knows, I could just be flat out wrong about everything. I'm just trying to explain my perspective about why I'm fairly optimistic about the future of Persona and why it would make sense for Atlus to remake Personas 3 and 4 before 1 and 2. Are you guys excited for the release of Persona 4 Revival, or are you still turned off by it? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, take care.